Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can watch us on YouTube and Rumble while following us on Facebook, or find us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe or follow today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be on the spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly podcast series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time tuning in, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and also don't forget to follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, from a $60 million empty empire to embodied CEO, grounded in her storied experience of corporate triumph, and revered for her astute business strategies, she embodies a rare alchemy of authority and introspection. As the founder of a $60 million business, she transitioned to a path of holistic achievement, crafting the blueprint for what she terms the embodied CEO. With each conversation, she weaves practical wisdom, weaving worlds to awaken the true magic in the mastery of leadership. Today, she's here to share her insights, empowering us to lead not just in business, but in every facet of our lives with purpose and presence. Let's welcome to the show, Leslie Kay. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome. And chiming all the way from Australia.
Chiming in all the way from Australia, yes.
That's on my bucket list. I want to visit sometime soon.
I spent a lot of time in the States, so
yeah, right
yeah,
on.
I love it.
Right
I
on.
love it. I love it.
So, what is an embodied CEO?
Essentially, it's business through the body, and life through the body, life the way it should be. Basically, this body-mind connection, and really starting to slow down and listen to ourselves and start to lead ourselves from this inner knowing, rather than like contorting ourselves to the version that the world, especially in business and corporate, deems palatable or acceptable, or in line with the narrative that we're often pushed towards in business.
Yeah. Because we always seem to be pushed towards, there are things that we want to move forward in business, and then there's things that, we kind of second guess. It's like, is that really a spot for me? Is that really something that I really want? Or, tiptoe, get your foot in the door, see if you like it, and then, no, it's not really right for me. So, yeah, it's kind of like listening to our higher selves.
Truly.
Into the intuition.
Yeah.
And feeling the energy in the environment as well. Kind of like, is this really going? Yeah.
And for me, it's like that introspection. It's there's so much noise, even in conscious spaces. It's this deepening relationship with self. So you have that North Star, you have that compass to come back to and be like, no, like this is my truth. And in that, sort of discerning whether it's fear, like your own fear programming, or intuition to say stop, because there's always two sides to the same coin, where we can sort of come back to our own introspection and reflection, but then not push ourselves into the places we need to be to actually level up our leadership or stretch ourselves out of our comfort zone, because it's not about staying safe or small or confined to our current reality, It's actually that deep contemplation of like, this might feel scary to parts of me, and I have to be with those parts of me maybe to push me through this evolution, but we're going in that direction anyway. So how can I somatically, emotionally, psychologically get these parts of me that might be afraid on board with where we're going?
And that seems to be, I face this too, fear. It's the fear of success.
Truly.
And it's like, you know what you have to do, or you know what you should do in order to make that next step of succeeding. And it's kind of like we're playing the game too. It's like, well, in the podcast world, it's like, I want to try something different. I want to try something that nobody else has tried, to just to see how it's going to work. And in any business, we are always faced with this fear of doing something. But I mean, how do we get past that fear?
Great question. I want to try to keep it broad because I feel I can adjust it for men. I work mainly with women, and a lot of the work I do is connecting them back to the wisdom of their womb and the oracle of their womb. So I do a lot of breathwork practices and really start to connect into, our wombs. It's like the most tenderest part of ourselves. We can't even manipulate or control ourselves from the depths of that knowing. And so, there's a few things. Deepening that relationship and somatically starting to feel where fear resides in your body. And then asking the fear or the sensation, like what it's here for, what it's trying to teach us. So often people get fear in the top of like high heart coming into their throat. So it might be like breathing into this place and just opening up a conversation and saying, which can sound weird if people haven't done somatics or embodiment work, but we speak to ourselves. We just have forgotten how to listen. And I sit in the intersection of science and spirituality. I'm, master NLP, master hypnotherapist, certified psychedelic coach. So it's not all woo-woo. There's a lot of intersection between neuroscience and actually deepening this body-mind connection. So in essence, we're deepening the relationship with our subconscious. And we're trying to bypass our critical faculty, our prefrontal cortex, which is our ego. And the more we can get into what's underneath, not what our ego throws up at us to think or feel, then we can come into a bit of deeper truth. Yeah. And I would say for the men, it's breathe into your heart and just ask it what's here. Like ask what's the truth of your heart, and really just spend some time listening rather than doing.
Yeah. So it's more than just what normal people, or I wouldn't say normal people, what people always say, and it becomes a cliche, is, wow, if you fear it, embrace it. It's more, I feel that it's more than just embracing. Like you said, you gotta listen.
And build a relationship. Like with all the people that I work with, often people talk about, there's a voice inside, there's the doubt inside of your head. And, for women like this mean girl, or for men like this arsehole, basically, I hope I can say.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about actually building a relationship with that part of you. It's about asking it what it wants. Like, so we're all running around as little boys and little girls. We're literally just compartmentalized parts of smaller versions of us that didn't process their emotions or had something, either big T or little t trauma happen to them. And we're often stuck in that emotional frame of whatever happened at that point in time.
Yeah.
And the deeper we build the relationship with that part of ourselves, and rather than being like, shut up, I don't like what you have to say, if we actually go, that's really interesting. Can you tell me why you feel this way or why you're saying this? And actually open a conversation with these parts. If you do it often enough and with enough love rather than rejection, they start to soften. They start to soften and they start to actually tell you why they're saying those things. And so, we're building a deeper relationship with self. We're not trying to say, well, this part of me is good and this part of me is bad, and this part of my fear is good and this part of my fear is bad. It's how much love and acceptance can we find for every part of our consciousness, and that's what encourages back into more wholeness and power, and really allows us to step deeper into our truth.
Yeah. Like you said, we have these doubts, things that have happened in the past that have shaken us, and we're like, I don't want to try that again, or I failed the last time I tried this, and I don't want to do it again. And so it seems like people kind of use the past as a path for the future.
Truly
doesn't always mean, we have to sometimes try things again.
Truly. And our ego, our prefrontal cortex, would rather keep us in a familiar hell than allow us to evolve into an unfamiliar heaven, because its main goal is safety. It doesn't care if the reality we're in is making us miserable, because it knows that it's safe in it. All it wants is consistency in its environment.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't care if we hate that environment or we're not satisfied with that environment. It just wants consistency because it finds safety in consistency. So it's just remembering that, like, we're wired to keep ourselves safe. We're wired from infants to keep ourselves safe. And sometimes it's like the fear is the fear of losing the current reality because it's safe in the current reality, but it might not be the best reality for us.
Yeah. Absolutely. So before we go any further, what can people to your website, www.lesliekay.com, LEZLYKAYE.com.
Yes.
So through your website, what can people find, and certain programs and services that you offer?
Yeah, beautiful. Instagram as well. You can hit me up on Instagram and you'll see a lot of my content, which is literally just my name at Leslie Kay. My programs, mainly for women at this point. If men do want to work with me, I do open up occasionally one-on-one, but a lot of my group programs are women, because I'm all about building that safety for women to be expressed. The quickest and, I guess, easiest way to work with me and to get a sense of how I operate is I offer a program called Grace Blueprints. All of my work revolves around grace and walking this path back to ourselves and back into this deeper truth with grace and humility and love. Coming from a 60 mil empire, I kind of burnt everything to the ground, and at the beginning of my journey, there wasn't a lot of grace. There was just a lot of projection and rage, basically. And so this is an embodied experience of, especially people that are just starting to awaken or getting curious about this world or curious about themselves and deepening this relationship with selves. I feel there's a proclivity to kind of burn it all to the ground and start over. I wish I knew what I knew now back when I had this 60 mil empire and was still married, because I feel I would have not actually burnt it to the ground. I feel there would have been a lot more grace and capacity to hold who I was becoming with who I was leaving behind or evolving from. So from that journey, Grace Blueprints was born, and this is basically a part breakthrough and part blueprint to all the places you're keeping yourself hooked. And so I basically interview someone for 3 hours, and I can tell you after that 3 hours the places you need to look. Whether it's mother wounds or father wounds or victim mentality. And victim mentality is generally the biggest, and it weaves through our consciousness in really subtle ways. So that's probably my key program at the moment, and the softest way to work with me without locking yourself into a 12-month container. But if you're the type of person that wants a 12-month, let's get shit done, I'm here for that too.
Exactly. Yep. If you want to start it, do it now.
Exactly.
You've got something that's called the self-responsibility code. Explain
that. Yeah. So self-responsibility code essentially is the foundations of this deep self relationship, the foundations of all the answers we seek, and as cliche as it is, and as much as everyone says it, is inside of us. And it's this relationship with self and this lack of responsibility with self that tends to show up in our lives, especially as we're, I built and scaled 2 multi-million-dollar companies, and at the peak of losing one of those, I witnessed that all of these things kept going wrong. And when I actually stood still, likely for the first time in my life, and started to pay attention to why, I was the common denominator in that. And so from that place, I was like, really, if we all just became really self-responsible with our own reflections and growth, and I want to say growth to dissolve the ego or to come into deeper relationship with the ego, because a lot of, in business, a lot of personal development spaces are kind of ego inflating. It's kind of reinforcing how good you are or how good you become on the other side of this course, whereas self-responsibility strips it all back. It really brings it back to the core of, how did I get here? What things in my life impacted the way I'm showing up in the world? How can I truly look at everything that's happening? And again, neuroscience shows that our world is a reflection of our internal thoughts and beliefs. And so I really started to look at, what beliefs am I holding that is manifesting or magnetizing or actualizing these experiences in my life.
Yeah. What has been the biggest lesson in this journey for you so far?
Ooh. Just one? We don't have enough time.
I know.
I actually want to say grace. I feel like grace is my new body of work, and I feel it's been permeating through me, because as I reflect, it has been my biggest lesson. It has been my biggest oh shit moment.
Yeah.
In this reflection of, for parts of my journey, and this is true for everyone, I took my, unconscious ego and then just flipped it into a spiritual ego, and masked my masked all the places I was still scared with thinking I was doing all of the work, but there was deeper to go and more to look at and more responsibility to take. And the chaos that I caused at the beginning of my journey, unintentionally, again, hindsight's a beautiful thing, but this is why I'm so passionate about this work. I wish I had someone like me when I first started. I wish I had someone that could hold this pillar of consciousness and expansion, as well as hold this pillar of business, and understand the responsibility to not only myself, but to the people that worked for me, and to my ex-husband. And, not that I was nasty, but I sort of just cut him out of my life. And I didn't have the tools to process all of the emotion that I was feeling, to process the conversations that I needed to have. And so instead of bringing him into my pain and bringing him into my turmoil, I put up more walls and pushed him out, and I pushed the world out. Actually, for a long period of time, I was like, I don't have capacity because I don't understand what I'm navigating. And I literally took a match to my old life to allow the new life to rise from the ashes. But I strongly feel we don't need that much destruction and chaos.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that, and I'm sure a lot of people have been guilty of that. When we feel this pain, that we feel that our walls are caving in, that everything is destroying within us, we're afraid to bring other people in to share it with. And sometimes, if we do, it just feels like, we're selfish and stuff like that, trying to bring a burden onto somebody else. What do you think would be a way to kind of step past that and kind of allow somebody, whether they want to, whether they volunteer, well, share this pain with me, to bring somebody in that you feel that can help?
Yeah, this is twofold. As we start to face the darkness, I truly feel it's really important to find someone to navigate that with us. And I talk about, like, I'm not anyone's guru. I'm literally just 2 steps ahead with a flashlight, like shining in the places that you probably don't want to go or don't need to go.
Yeah.
Through the depths of hell that I've transversed to get to this version of me, I'm like, let me just show you the shortcuts here. There's no shortcuts in life, and I feel as humans we do sometimes walk ourselves into pain that's unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say, so find a mentor or a healer or a coach or someone that does have a degree of separation, but that is fighting or vying for your, like I say, like highest potential timeline. Because the issue can be with bringing, or a therapist or someone.
Yeah.
I don't really condone traditional psychologists unless they're holistic, because body, mind, soul, talk therapy only gets you so far until you bring it into the body. That's a whole other conversation, which is why I'm Embodied CEO. But make sure if you're going to a psychologist that they do some sort of somatic practices. And some of them these days have holistic stuff weaved in. But the reason that I say this is because you don't want other people's projections of fear. And so I attest this first part of my evolution as to, like, holding on to my old life with one hand, trying to pull myself into my new life with one hand, and truly feeling like I was getting torn apart in the middle.
Yeah.
And so the nuance with inviting other people into this pain. Now, I'm going to say friends and colleagues first, and then I'll touch on relationships, because I've spent 12 months in a lot of relationship containers. I'm no expert by any means just yet, but I'm working my way there. But friendships especially, people will only bring you into their level of awareness and their level of permission to live their lives. So let's say you're going through this death and rebirth process.
Yeah.
And the version you need to become on the other side is better than the version of you that with friends with this group of people. And not better in any sense as like from a hierarchical, but let's say these people might drink, or they might take drugs, or even if it's a lot of plant medicine and you don't want to be in that scene anymore, it might be a tantric community or a polyamorous community, whatever it might be, that you don't feel in resonance or alignment with this community anymore. Yeah. Or this version of you. Or for me, it was big corporate organizations, and I was in mining. There's a lot of mining in Australia, and they would talk about well-being for the sake of talking about well-being, but never actually do anything to help people heal. And the more I healed, the more I knew they weren't doing anything effective.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in that process, I had to cut ties with all of my corporate friends because they wanted to keep me in their version of reality, not allow me to evolve into the new version of reality. And so this is why friendships are nuanced, because they can keep us trapped in smaller versions. That's not to say we can't bring people on the journey, but they have to want to go on the journey. There has to be willingness to evolve with you. Mm-hmm. I'm going to relate that back to personal relationships. And again, I'm no expert. What I know to be true in my experience, and a lot of people that walk this path, and even in my experience with my ex-husband, and I wasn't as, affluent in relating as I am now. The only way to truly set yourself free and set the other person free is to constantly speak the truth of your heart. Constantly. Don't withhold it because you think you're going to hurt them. There's a lot of withdrawing in relationships. There's a lot of avoidance of truth because we don't want to hurt someone, or potentially as well, if depending on the dynamic in the relationship, we don't want them to talk us out of the decisions we're making.
Yeah.
So with my ex-husband, for example, I fell out of love with him, but I deeply loved him and I didn't want to hurt him. So as much as I say I would have done it differently, there was also such power in putting myself first and saying, like, I choose my happiness before I choose your own. And a lot of my distancing was basically fear that I wasn't strong enough to continue to choose me as I was evolving, because my heart, as closed as it was then, I took 12 months to separate from him, essentially, because I didn't want to hurt him. It wasn't about, I knew I would be fine, but there was so much of me that was like, oh, he's not going to be able to handle this, and I want him to be okay in this. And it got to a point where I was like, I actually can't continue to choose people above myself, and I have to stand in my truth. And he may have come along for that journey if I had have been that honest with him in the moment. It's like I didn't give him the opportunity to know that, and to then to let him make an informed decision as to whether he was on board for that journey or not.
Yeah. We always seem to choose our colleagues, friends, or associates first when we start to talk about some really deep secrets, like, stuff that's bothering us. It's like I tend to do this. I don't go to my mother, or I go to my partner and stuff like that. You just go to, like, associate at work, or a good friend and stuff to
Would you like me to tell you why?
Yeah.
Because we're less afraid of losing the love of those people than we are afraid of losing the love of those closest to us. So everything we do, like, people talk about self-sabotage, I actually don't subscribe to that narrative, because everything we do is actually coming from a place of deep self-love. We just might not recognize it as love, or we might not show it to ourselves in ways that are conducive to our evolution. Again, our ego, our prefrontal cortex, is just trying to keep us safe. So we might, sabotage in ways that seems crazy to us when we reflect, but we're actually just trying to keep ourselves safe. So it's actually a form of deep self-love. So it's a beautiful reframe I like to share with my clients is, you're not sabotaging, you're loving yourself in imperfect ways, and that's okay. We're going to show you how to love yourself in better ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, this going to other people is because we are hardwired we want to be loved at our core. The reasons, and there needs a new word for narcissists, but people that manipulate in these ways are actually trying to receive love. They just don't know how to. And they're doing it in ways that harms the other person, because they're so afraid of losing the love that they think is acceptable or viable, that they drop into these patterns or behaviors of manipulation. And so when we start to look at the human psyche as, like, everyone's just trying to be loved, some of us just have better strategies than others. And some of us truly, like, it's just like, some of us have strategies that are love focused, and everything's love focused. Some of us have strategies that don't harm people, and some of us have strategies that unfortunately harm other people. And so it's when we can reflect on the world in that way, we find a lot more compassion.
Yeah. When you put it that way, it definitely makes sense. Especially the narcissists out there, those that we call the narcissists, is, they just suck when it comes to trying to.
They're just doing it in not conducive to love in any form, but they don't know that. It's what they've been taught. And I want to add, every single human on this planet has narcissistic tendencies, every single human, because we're actually, the only thing we care about at our core is our survival. Even people that put other people before them, they care about their survival. It doesn't seem that way because they put themselves last, but what they're doing is, like, I will sacrifice myself to receive your love, because I feel if I don't have your love, I won't survive. And so everything is a reflection of this deep self-relationship, or lack of deep self-relationship. And this is why coming into this self-responsibility, coming back to this grace, is like, what is the relationship you have with yourself? because I guarantee you the relationship, the true relationship, not the version of you the rest of the world sees or the positive version of you. I want to know, what does the mean voice say? I want to know what happens when you succeed, what happens when you fail, what happens when you're under pressure, and what's that relationship like? Because this is the relationship you're perpetuating into your business relationships, into your personal relationships. The world is a mirror of ourselves. It is a mirror of the depth of love we have for ourselves, and remembering that also allows us to have compassion for ourselves.
Yeah. I agree. What's one thing you wish you knew now that you can, go back in time and give to the version of yourself when you first started out?
True self-love. A lot of my actions and decisions were made from fear of rejection, of the desire to achieve, because, all of my wounding, not all, but a majority of my wounding came from my father wound, where a lot of women build empires off the back of seeking daddy's approval. It's fine. We just, once you realize it, you can't unrealize it. And I'm actually also grateful, because it's given me the drive and determination and commitment to my mission. But yeah, this deep sense of like peace. I didn't really celebrate myself or truly, even sometimes now it's hard to receive the magnitude of the size of the business I created in such a short amount of time. There's still so much of me that seeks the things I did wrong versus the achievements and the gratitude and celebration of myself. And this will be a forever process. This will be a process to unwind this narrative that a lot of women have often, that we both feel that we're too much and we're not enough all at the same time. And so the gift of that, the gift of slowing down and being present and actually coming into love of myself.
How important do you think, or you feel that meditation and breath work should be in any process?
I feel it should be compulsory.
Yeah.
In fact, before I close, sorry, go.
Yeah, but I think it should be in anything that we pursue. We should always meditate on it and just focus.
Before I sold the business, I actually started to make, and not enforce, but most people went. I didn't enforce, but I strongly suggested. I was doing monthly breathworks with the people in my organization. I'm a breathwork facilitator. I weave somatics into everything I do. Breathwork is a beautiful way to be present with yourself, and to actually witness what is alive for you. Because often if you actually consciously stop and think, how am I breathing? If we're breathing shallowly, which we often all do, like into our chest, there's a level of disconnect. Now, I mostly breathe to my womb because I'm in this practice constantly, and I can feel when I don't, and I actually take a moment to pause and breathe deeper into my belly. I've also programmed myself, this is a biohack for everyone, or a quick little hack. Every time you get in your car, take 3 deep breaths into your belly, because we're in our car so often and we do it so unconsciously. But I've hardwired my brain now to go, every time I get in my car, I actually stop and breathe. And it's like that quick reset. And I do it subconsciously now. I actually did a live to my audience the other day because I was driving and I stopped. So subconsciously, I just drop into a breathing pattern. So I stopped and pulled over and I was like, guys, it's taken me 6 months, but I'm so programmed in a good way to to just be present with my breathing when I'm driving now. And if we could all do this, like weave these micro moments of somatics and embodiment into our day, it will give us more clarity. But yeah, breathwork and meditation, the moments to be still, because we're speaking, like our subconscious, our higher self, God, whoever you want to be within those moments, is speaking with us constantly. We're just not making space to listen.
Yeah. Definitely. And especially in the car, that is the perfect place to do breath work. Because you're
eyes open, but yes.
Yeah, definitely. Eyes open, concentration on the road, and you're sitting, and it's a good place to just in, out, and just, time it, and just concentrate on, the actual breath.
Truly.
And maybe we wouldn't have such much road rage if people did that.
Truly. Because all road rage is a dysregulation. So
yeah,
we're people's stress levels are sort of often sitting right underneath their window of tolerance, and then someone pulls that in front of them and it pushes them out. But if they were breathing, their window of tolerance would be much bigger.
Now through your website and through your website, do you teach these courses as far as like certain exercises and breath work and stuff?
Yeah, I don't teach breath work. I hold breath work. I do online as well. Like most of my work is online. Not many people live. Well, there is. Perth, Western Australia is quite huge, but most of my clientele is online, and preferably because I travel a lot as well. On my Instagram is a lot of these tips and tricks. So I do have some instructional videos. And then in my, I've actually got a program called the Embodied CEO, actually, which is the foundations of this work. And that has it's a 12-week program that has around 5 somatic practices in that program. And in the States, it's like 50% out. The Australian dollar's wild. So anyone that's tuning in from America, basically all of my stuff is 50% off for you. Instagram has a lot more of my free stuff, my little tips on somatic practices.
And you also have a YouTube channel.
I do have a YouTube channel. Yes, there's some stuff in there. There's some speaking that I have in there as well. So if you just type in Leslie Kay, it'll pull up my articles. Go on my website. You can go to my media page. I'm quite accessible online because my preference is to be available to people everywhere that need it.
Cool. Yes, this day and age. I mean, you can, like right now. I mean, this interview, we're traveling through time.
Truly.
Time and space.
Truly.
Separation.
It's all an illusion anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. So before we wrap up the show, what would you like to offer as a takeaway for our audience? I want to say the answers that you're seeking, the trust that you're seeking in the world, or the lack of trust you currently have in the world, comes from the lack of trust you have inside of yourself. And so in the moments where you feel like things aren't working out or you don't have all the answers, it's actually an invitation to trust yourself a little more. And sometimes that means like pushing through the places that feel resistant to that change and building the foundations somatically, emotionally, to be able to have some discernment as to whether it's like, I want to say there's like good fear, because somatically your body's saying this is a no, but there's also fear that's actually keeping us stuck in being victim to old versions of ourselves, and it's not necessary to stay there. Yeah. Beautiful. And that internal dialogue that's always going on, And it's like trying to shut that off for a while. Just
It's actually not about shutting it off. So my tip there is become its best friend. Because it doesn't go anywhere. Like, I've been doing this work for years and I still have that voice sometimes. It doesn't become as incessant. It doesn't, and it stops being as nasty as it used to be. But, you know, let's say I'm chatting to a guy and I'm not getting what I want from the conversation. She still comes. She still will, like, it's you, or you're not pretty enough, or, and again, it's not as that obvious often, but it's often what a lot of women have. And so I literally will, in those moments, it's like, rather than trying to push that voice out to make it shut up, I turn to that voice and I'm like, wow, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
And then open the dialogue. Just start the conversation with these parts of you, because that's where alchemy occurs. And I'll just give everyone a little a visual to go with this. If, let's say I had a wound on my arm and I had this big gaping wound. This is a tattoo, it's not a wound. But let's say I had this big gaping wound. I'm not chopping off my arm. I'm healing it. I'm putting cream on it. I'm nurturing it back into wholeness.
Yeah.
And so this is how we need to approach these parts of our psyche that feel mean or disjointed. It's, how can I nurture you back into wholeness, back into love? We don't do that by pushing people out and being angry at them. We do it by loving them. So how can you love the ugliest parts of you? Because when we can love the ugliest parts of ourselves, the meanest parts of ourselves, one, they don't become so ugly and mean. And it also means the rest of the world can love the ugliest parts of us too, and we find more safety in that.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we go, namaste, my friend. Namaste. Thank you so much.
Namaste. It's been my absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we go, where can people find you? Give them your website.
LeslieKay.com or at Leslie K, LEZLYKAYE. And if you put that on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all of my tags are the same.
Cool. Cool. Everybody, go check Leslie out. Guess, I learned some breath work, meditate. Don't hold back the fear. Crash through it, and you'll find yourself.
Always.
Absolutely.
Always.
Yeah. Leslie, blessings, my friend. Thank you so much.
Blessings. Thank you so much. Thank you,
everybody, for watching The Seance on Conscious Radio Network. And until next time, we'll see you then.